Last week we had a brief look at the GT40 and its creator Ray Christopher. This week we're going to take a far more in-depth look, but first of all I want to ask Ray a few questions about GT Developments. Now, GT Developments, what does that stand for?
It was a company that we sort of produced early in the 80s, just to produce parts for the GT40. We then went and met a guy called Bob Lutz, who was running Ford. That it got us very, very interested in being able to supply us with parts to produce GT40s.
Right. How many actual real ones were there made?
They were supposed to be made 130, but in reality I think there was somewhere around 100.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, a fantastic racing history, obviously. 1966 Le Mans winner, rumoured because Ford wanted to buy Ferrari and then went out to beat them on their own car. Is that true?
That's
Is this really true?
Yeah, that's very, very true. They decided they wanted to go racing. They tried to buy Ferrari. Ferrari, I think, used it so Fiat would buy them to get some money into his business.
Right.
And then Ford said, well, now we're going to give Ferrari a run for his money. And they actually did. It took 2 or 3 years to do it, but they actually did. And remember, the same car won 3 times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Now, a fantastically evocative motor car, you know, an absolute classic. But since you started making them, you've sold how many of these?
They tell me it's 400 units.
Which is a tremendous amount of cars.
It is.
And things are changing with GT Developments, right? And you're going to go and do something a little bit more, well, shall we say, off the wall and more expensive, huh?
That's right. We're going back racing. Yeah, it's always been that I've always wanted to race, and every time I get the chance, we race. We're now producing a pure race car.
And will that be as quick as the Le Mans cars of its time?
Oh, certainly will. Yeah.
All right.
There's rumour and talk that the cars will go back to Le Mans and race. Really? Yeah, that's true.
You heard it first on Kits and Cruising. Well, obviously, if you're going to go racing, and Le Mans in particular, the cars are going to have to be slightly different to the road version. So what are the differences?
Mostly weight. The first thing you've got to do is reduce the weight by something like, I don't know, 200 kilos, 300 kilos off the car, and then brake horsepower. It's all about how fast the thing's going to go. So it's engine. So you're going to start putting somewhere in 500 to 600 brake horsepower engines into the car. Right. Then that gives you problems. You're going to have gearbox braking if you use standard road boxes. So you're into a different gearbox, you're into a different construction on the chassis. There'll be lightweight aluminium monocoques in the car just to get the weight down. Yeah. The body shape will be basically the same. Body panels will come out of exactly the same mould, but they're considerably lighter. They may be made from carbon fibres and some of the more modern composite materials. And really that's the base of where we're going to come from to go racing. Right. So obviously uprated brakes as well, totally different suspension geometry? Yeah, the geometry is totally different. Right. Yeah, coming into sort of Formula 1 specs now. Right. If anything's going to be competitive, you've got to stay ahead of the game and come into a modern era. Okay. What about safety on that? I mean, cars obviously got to have a very, very strong roll cage in it to be up with current regulations and things. Very, very much so. Yeah, that is extremely strict. Safety now is the foremost thing. You've got to be able to crash the car at 100 miles an hour and walk away from it. One of the things I remember in the early days about your side-mounted fuel tanks was that you used to have Explosafe in them, and they were allegedly very, very safe. I mean, you're taking that concept and going right up market with it. Yeah, that's right. We're still going to use the same system of Explosafe because it works extremely well. We've never had a failure in the tank or a fire in the tank on any of the cars over the last 20 years. Which is a hell of a lot. Very, very good, yeah. The, what sort of series do you reckon you're going to be competing in? Well, it's production now. We've actually, this is another bit for the program. We've just got into Group C, so it's now a full production car. So we've actually got, it was only last week we got full production status for the car. So that makes you a bona fide manufacturer, certainly does. All right. We've known it for years, you and I, but I think the rest of the world's just caught up. Right. What would you, how many cars would you reckon to make on, racing 40s? Well, so far, I think this year there's 14 to 15 entries already, one car. So it looks like we're going to be producing 20, maybe 30 cars. Brilliant, absolutely amazing. Maybe 18 months, yeah. What's in the inside of the car? Well, basically, in the race car, there's nothing. You've got a seat, your bum sits on the floor, and that's about it. In the road car, it's quite luxurious. You've got good leather stuff. You've got nice air conditioning. You don't get that in a race car, not at all. You've got large drafty holes in a race car. You want as little weight in it so you don't put anything that's comfortable. Maybe the seat for the driver is pretty good, but the passenger seats, very low.
Right. I mean, the 40 was a pretty slippery shape, hence the 40 inches high and all that sort of business. Still a good aerodynamic shape today, or are you going to have to put loads of spoilers on and things like that?
It's not bad. It's not as good as it wants to be. Remember, these cars are going to be capable of over 200 miles an hour, so they've got to be extremely good.
Really?
At the moment, we're designing up or working on a wind tunnel models to find out what we've got to do with the car and get it really, really stable to be competitive.